Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the workbench. Today we're going to be loading buckshot. The conditions are perfect for reloading here in Iowa. It's windy, the snow's blowing around, just cold and shitty in general, so great day to do it. The reason I got into shotgun reloading in the first place was to see if I could load some of the specialty loads, slugs, buckshot, cheaper than factory. With slugs, I've absolutely done it and created a product just as good. With buckshot, I would argue that I have also, and so that's what we're going to be working on today. Alright, so let's talk components and then we'll get straight into the reloading. The first load, we'll be using Herco powder. Holes we'll be using today are Winchester Universal. You're saying, what the hell is a Universal? Well, a Universal is based off the Winchester AA12 hole. This is a cheap disposable version of that. If you've ever bought those 100-round value packs of cheap shot shells to shoot clay birds with, these are the holes that those normally come in. The load data for a AA12 and Universal is the same, but something to note about a Universal. Okay, the plastic itself is cheap and it's crappy. They're okay to reload, but I wouldn't reload them more than once. And the reason is, if you do, if you see where the fold crimps are made here, this thin crappy plastic, it has a tendency to break at the creases. You see that? Where you get these little, it likes to break right in the grooves, and that's what will happen after one, sometimes, but definitely after two firings. These will just turn pretty much to garbage on you. The reason I like to reload with them, I don't necessarily have to pick them up. If I'm throwing a buckshot load, you know, me and the friends or cousins or somebody are going to go shoot shit up, it's nice to have a hole that I don't have to worry about leaving in the timber. I don't have to think about it, just they're disposable. This particular load, Winchester 209 primer also, which is my favorite because they work for pretty much everything. We'll be using the AA12R wad. This is actually a Claybuster's replacement, but any replacement for a AA12R. You'll note that the 12R is actually a fair bit shorter than strictly the basic AA12 wad. The shot cup is about the same size, right? But what we're working with here is less cushioning, less of a buffer. Why would we do that? Well, for if you had a taller shot column for whatever reason, and that's kind of why I've never thought twice about throwing buckshot in a AA12. For the most part, the buckshot, where it's stacked in the hole, it's going to come a ways above the wad anyway. I don't think we can really get hurt too bad with the AA12, say on a given number of powder, piling it up just a little bit higher. It's not going to make a difference. Our second load today will be based off of Nitro 100. Now, what Nitro 100 is actually a probably best known for its use with just lead shot in general. It's not really a buckshot load. Wasn't formulated for that, but I argue that it'll work just fine. Again, an ounce of shot is an ounce of shot. We're using it in an improved wad. We're using the charge and the load in proportion. In fact, we're using them just exactly as they came out of the book, only we're using them in a AA12 wad. So let's get started. Okay, these holes have been sized and primed, which is the way I like to store them. So first things first, let's get started with the Herco load. Now this load, again, calls for a Winchester AA hole, a AA12R wad, and 25 grains of Herco powder. So I'm not going to use the lead load all to dispense the powder. When you're only loading a few of them, it doesn't make sense to change the bushings all the time. There are 25 grains, 25.1 on the money. That's perfect. It's not a big job to change the bushings, and if I were going to load more than a couple, I'd say sure, let's go for it, but it just takes a second to scale that out. Next thing we'll do is take the 12R wad, stick it in the hole, take my pin or something, shove the wad in, seat it, give it a couple good taps on the bench with the pin in the middle. Make sure that wad seats nicely on top of the powder. Next thing we're going to do is stack our buckshot. Now, I pretty well know what my buckshot weighs. In this case, 9 pellets will be just fine. When it comes to stacking buckshot, I think people have different opinions on this. You can stack 2x2 or 3x3. I've actually done 2x2 to good effect more than once. Today we're going to go 3x3. And I bet you can't see it. Maybe you can. 3 of them really just don't fit in there that well. You've got to use your pin here and kind of shove them all together. And even if you do that, even if you think you've got them pretty tight against each other, they're going to slip, they're going to jump around, and that's normal. There's just not much you can do to stop it. So that's layer 1. Layer 2, same deal. We're kind of going for an arrangement. Say the first layer's here, here, here. Next layer is going to go here, here, here. Then the third layer, again, right on top of the first layer. 6, we need 7, 8, and 9. I'm going to seat these here as best I can, but remember they're loose, they move around, there's just not a lot we can do about that. So this shot column is stacked. We're going to put an 8-point fold crimp on top of it. Remember I told you these holes are cheap. They're cheap plastic, they're crappy. You've really got to step on it, lean on it a couple times in the fold crimp, or otherwise you'll get a fold crimp that'll want to kind of peek on you after it sits in storage for a while. We're not going to let these sit in storage, but check out my finished fold crimp. And see how that looks like dog shit? That looks like dog shit because these holes really aren't made to be reloaded. That won't hurt the shootability of it at all. That's not going to affect us, but it's not cosmetically pleasing, and it's not something that, you know, it's cool to show your friends. It just looks like crap. So, but it'll shoot. I promise it'll shoot. Okay, the next one will be the Nitro 100 load. Okay, Nitro 100 load. Actually going to use a little less powder than the Herco load. It's going to take 15 grains. This came straight off of the website, which is, which damn website was it? AccuratePowder.com. One nice thing about Nitro 100, this particular powder, it's all of their load data lists 3 or 4 different velocities depending on what you want to do with the load. If you want it faster, if you want it hotter, it gives you options. You know, most of them are set in stone. You want this load with this primer, you must use this amount of powder, and they'll try to scare you into not deviating from it. We're not going to worry a lot about that. Basically, this load I had the option of going anywhere from 15 grains up to about 19. So I've got 16.2. I'm going to say that's good enough, or close enough. Again, we could have went a lot hotter with this load if we'd wanted to, and been within the manufacturer's specs. Okay, so I poured the powder in. Take the Winchester AA 12 wad, seat it on top of the powder. Now I'm going to throw the buckshot in on top. Same deal, this calls for 1 1/8 ounce the shot, so we're going to give it roughly 1 1/8 ounce the buckshot. 9 pellets would be close enough. Before you purists hang me out to dry, I know you don't like to hear close enough and used when talking about reloading, but that's the fact, it's close enough. Okay, we stack the shot in kind of that triangular pattern, 3 wide by 3 high, and here's what we got. Now you probably can't see it, I hope you can. You see how the shot comes just up to the edge of the wad? It couldn't get much better than that, right? The only difference with the 12R wad, yes, we used a little more powder in the other, but the shot is still going to be above the edge of the wad, and that's okay. That's not going to hurt us a bit. So anyway, we're going to throw a fold crimp on top. And you're ready to rock. See, that looks a little better than the other. It's still kind of twisted, kind of gnarled a little bit, but it's not quite as bad as the other. That's what you run into when you use these little cheap disposable holes. Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you. the point I'm trying to make here is that buckshot really isn't that hard to load. Some of the naysayers, when you question, can I do this, can I do that, all they're doing is repeating what they've been told, what they've read in the book. I'm here to tell you I've shot dozens of these loads. We're staying within a well-defined ratio of charge weight to load weight, and we're never going to have any problems that way. A good reason to continue to use that load data is it'll maintain your column height. I kind of misspoke earlier. I had it in my head that the 12R wads would come out a little higher. Well, the size of the shot cup was the same no matter how you slice it. With the 12R and the Herco, we used more powder, so the length of the cushioning was less, and the column height came out perfect just to the bottom of the fold crimp. I will also tell you that I've loaded loads that were too low or too high. When they're too high, they're more likely to peak on you. Again, as long as that lead to charge weight ratio is still in line, you're really not going to get hurt too bad. It may not shoot worth a darn. It may be excessively loud. It may kick excessively hard. It may not kick much at all. It may not be able to hit the broadside of a barn with it. But my point is, we can reload buckshot cheaply using probably components that we already have, wads, powder. You don't have to have a super slow burning powder like Herco to make it work. Well, that's all I got for today. I decided it's too cold and crappy out. I don't really want to go out and shoot, so we'll catch you next time.